She said nothing all night, until her touch woke him before sunrise. The silent visitor David Mitchell lay unconscious on the cold metal floor of his crashed escape pod. The emergency lights flickered weakly, casting dancing shadows across his bruised face. 3 days had passed since his transport ship was attacked by unknown forces near the Kepler 442 system. His crew was gone, scattered across the void of space, and he had crash-landed on this strange planet alone. The world outside was beautiful but alien. Purple grass swayed in the gentle breeze, and 2 moons hung low in the amber sky. The air was breathable, but everything felt different. Gravity was lighter, sounds carried farther, and there was an energy in the atmosphere that made his skin tingle. Zephyra had been watching the strange metal object for hours. She crouched silently among the crystal formations that jutted from the hillside, her luminescent blue skin glowing faintly in the twilight. Her people, the Vailani, were known for their silence and observation. They spoke through touch, through shared emotions, through the gentle transfer of thoughts that came with physical contact. She had never seen a creature like the one inside the metal shell. His skin was pale and smooth, without the natural glow of her kind. His hair was dark and messy, and even unconscious, his face showed pain and exhaustion. The Vailani Council had warned against contact with off-worlders, but something about this being called to her curious heart thought, as night fell, Zephyra made a decision that would change both their lives. She approached the damaged pod, her bare feet making no sound on the soft earth. The door was partially open, and she could hear his labored breathing. He was alive, but barely. David stirred as a cool breeze touched his face. His eyes opened, slowly, vision blurry and head-pounding. At first, he thought he was dreaming. A figure knelt beside him, outlined in soft blue light. She was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her features were delicate and symmetrical, with large eyes that seemed to hold the depth of oceans. Her hair flowed like liquid starlight, and her skin pulsed with gentle bioluminescence. He tried to speak, but only a hoarse whisper came out. She tilted her head, studying him with those mesmerizing eyes. When he attempted to sit up, pain shot through his ribs. She raised her hand gently, palm facing him, and he understood the gesture. Stay still. Zephyra had brought supplies, strange fruits that glowed softly, and a container of clear, sweet water. She offered them to him with careful movements, never speaking, never making a sound. David accepted gratefully, his survival instincts overriding his caution. The fruit tasted like honey mixed with starlight, and the water soothed his parched throat. As the hours passed, she tended to his wounds with a skill that spoke of deep knowledge. Her touch was gentle but purposeful, and wherever her fingers made contact with his skin, he felt a warmth that seemed to accelerate his healing. She cleaned his cuts with a luminous liquid that numbed the pain and sealed the wounds. David watched her work in amazement. She moved with grace and efficiency, anticipating his needs before he could voice them. When he grew cold, she covered him with a blanket woven from fibers that retained warmth like nothing he had ever felt. When thirst struck again, water appeared at his lips, but it was her eyes that captivated him most. They held intelligence, compassion, and something else, a loneliness that matched his own. She was risking something by being here, he realized. This was not a casual encounter. As dawn approached, painting the alien sky in shades of gold and crimson, Zephyra prepared to leave. She had spent the entire night in silence, communicating only through actions and expressions. David reached out weakly, catching her wrist. "Thank you," he whispered, though he knew she might not understand the words. She paused, looking down at where his fingers touched her skin. For a moment, something passed between them, a spark of connection that transcended language and species. Then she gently freed herself and disappeared into the morning mist, leaving David to wonder if she had been real at all. The language of touch. David spent the next day exploring his immediate surroundings, testing his strength and cataloging his supplies. His injuries were healing remarkably fast, far beyond normal human recovery rates. Whatever she had done to him, it was working. His escape pod's communications were damaged, but he managed to send out a weak distress signal that might reach human space in a few days. As evening approached, he found himself watching the horizon, hoping to see that familiar blue glow. He had questions that gnawed at him. Who was she? Why had she helped him? And why did he feel such a strong pull toward someone he had just met? Zephyra returned with the sunset, emerging from the purple grasslands like a vision. This time, she brought more supplies and what appeared to be tools. She had decided to help him repair his communication system, though she had never seen such technology before. She knelt beside the damaged console, studying the strange symbols and lights with intense curiosity. David tried to show her how the circuits worked, speaking softly as he pointed to different components. She listened intently, not to his words, but to the rhythm and tone of his voice. When their hands accidentally touched while reaching for the same wire, both froze. The contact lasted only seconds, but in that brief moment, David felt a rush of images and emotions that weren't his own. He saw vast cities of crystal and light, felt the warmth of a community that spoke without words, experienced the isolation of being different from one's own kind. Zephyra pulled back quickly, her eyes wide with surprise. She had felt it too, his memories of Earth, the loss of his crew, the loneliness of being stranded far from home. The Veilani were telepathic through touch, but she had never connected with an alien mind before. The experience was both thrilling and terrifying. Over the following hours, they worked together in companionable silence. David showed her the basics of human technology, while she demonstrated how her people used bioluminescent organisms to create tools and light. They developed a simple system of communication through gestures and drawings in the soft earth. When David grew tired, Zephyra guided him to lie down. She placed her hands gently on his chest, and he felt that healing warmth again, deeper this time. She was sharing her life force with him, accelerating his recovery at the cost of her own energy. He tried to protest, but she shook her head firmly. As he drifted toward sleep, David felt her cool fingers brush his forehead. In that touch, he sensed her thoughts more clearly than before. She was scared, not of him, but of the feelings growing between them. Her people lived in harmony with their world, bound by traditions that discouraged contact with outsiders. By helping him, she was already breaking sacred laws, but she couldn't stay away. Something about this strange, wounded creature from the stars called to her heart. His kindness, his gratitude, the way he looked at her not with fear but with wonder. It was unlike anything she had experienced with her own people. David woke before dawn to find her still there, sitting quietly beside him. Her glow had dimmed, and he realized she had given too much of her energy to heal him. Ignoring his own weakness, he sat up and took her hands in his. The moment their skin touched, the connection flared to life again. This time, neither pulled away. They shared memories, emotions, hopes, and fears. He showed her Earth's blue skies and green forests. She showed him the song crystals of her world that filled the air with music when the wind blew through them. In that silent communion, they discovered that loneliness was universal. She was different from her people, too curious about the world beyond their crystal cities. He was an explorer who had always felt like an outsider, even among his own crew. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, they reluctantly broke the connection. Zephyra rose to leave, but this time David understood something crucial. She would return not out of duty or pity, but because she was choosing him, just as he was choosing her. Their love story was written in silence, told through touch and bound by understanding that transcended the barriers between worlds. Forbidden's hearts, the third night, brought unexpected danger. David was working on his repaired communication system when harsh lights suddenly illuminated the crash site. A sleek craft descended from the darkness, and several figures emerged. They were Velani, but different from Zephyra. Their bioluminescence was sharper, more aggressive, and their movements spoke of authority and anger. Zephyra arrived moments later, stepping protectively between David and the newcomers. The tension was immediate and obvious. The lead figure, taller than the others, with intricate patterns glowing across his skin, gestured angrily at David. Though no words were spoken, their meaning was clear through body language and the intensity of their lights. They wanted her to come with them. They wanted David gone. Zephyra stood her ground, her own glow intensifying as she communicated rapidly through touch with the leader. David watched helplessly, understanding that this was about him, about them, about the choice she had made to help him. The confrontation escalated when one of the Velani moved toward David's escape pod, clearly intending to destroy it. Zephyra stepped forward, placing herself directly in their path. The gesture was unmistakable. She was protecting him, claiming him under whatever laws or customs governed her people. David couldn't remain passive, drawing on reserves of strength he didn't know he possessed. He stood and walked to Zephyra's side. The Velani recoiled slightly, their lights flickering with what he interpreted as surprise. They hadn't expected the alien to show such courage. He took Zephyra's hand, and in that moment of contact, he projected every emotion he felt for her: gratitude, admiration, and yes, love. The depth of his feelings flowed through their connection, and her light blazed brighter in response. The Velani leader stepped forward, extending his hand toward Zephyra. David realized what was happening. They were demanding she choose her people, her world, her place in their society, or this strange alien who had crashed into her life. Zephyra looked at David, then at her people. Her hand trembled in his. He squeezed gently, then deliberately released her. He wouldn't force her to choose. She had already given him so much: healing, companionship, and the knowledge that love could exist between any two beings who truly understood each other. But Zephyra surprised everyone. Instead of taking the leader's hand, she stepped closer to David. Her glow shifted, becoming softer but more radiant. She was making her choice clear without words. The leader's patterns flashed angry red. He gestured sharply, and the other Velani moved to surround them. David tensed, ready to fight despite being outnumbered. But Zephyra raised her free hand, and suddenly her bioluminescence exploded in a display unlike anything David had seen. Complex patterns raced across her skin, telling a story that held the other Velani transfixed. David felt fragments of her meaning through their connection. She was sharing their experience, showing her people what she had learned about love, sacrifice, and the courage to bridge impossible differences. When her light show ended, silence stretched across the purple grassland. The leader stood motionless for long moments. Then, slowly, his angry red glow faded to a neutral blue. He looked at David with what might have been curiosity rather than hostility. The standoff was broken by a new sound, the distant hum of human spacecraft engines. David's distress signal had been received. Rescue was coming, but it also meant their time together was ending. The Velani leader gestured to his companions, and they began withdrawing toward their craft. But before leaving, he approached Zephyra one final time. They touched hands briefly, and David sensed forgiveness, sadness, and something like blessing in the exchange. As the Velani ship disappeared into the night sky, David and Zephyra were left alone with the approaching sound of his people's engines. They had been granted permission to say goodbye, but that goodbye was coming far too soon. They had perhaps an hour before the rescue ships arrived. 1 hour to compress all the words they couldn't speak, all the promises they couldn't make, all the love that had grown between them in just a few short days. Part 4. The Choice. Between worlds, the human rescue ship landed with a soft thud, kicking up clouds of purple dust. Captain James Morrison emerged first, followed by a medical team and 2 Marine escorts. David watched from beside his escape pod, Zephyra standing silently at his side. Her glow had dimmed to barely visible levels, a sign of the emotional strain she was experiencing. "Mitchell," Morrison called out, jogging toward them. "Thank God you're alive. We've been searching for 3 days." He stopped short when he noticed Zephyra, his hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. "Who is that?" "She saved my life," David said firmly, stepping slightly in front of Zephyra. "Without her, you'd be recovering a corpse." A medical officer, Dr. Rebecca Torres, approached with her scanner. "We need to get you to the ship for a full examination. The attack on your transport was more severe than we initially thought." As she ran her scanner over David, her eyebrows rose in surprise. "This is impossible. According to these readings, you should still be in critical condition. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, severe trauma, but everything's healed. What kind of medical treatment did you receive?" David glanced at Zephyra, who remained motionless. "Advanced local medicine," he said simply. Captain Morrison was studying Zephyra with professional interest. "Can she understand us?" "Not our words, but she's incredibly intelligent. She communicates through touch and bioelectric patterns." "We need to report this contact to command," Morrison said. "First contact protocols require." "No," David interrupted sharply. "Her people value privacy and isolation. They've already taken a huge risk by allowing her to help me." During this exchange, Zephyra had been listening to the rhythm and tone of their voices, learning what she could. She could sense David's tension, his protective instincts, and his growing distress at the thought of leaving her behind. Dr. Torres finished her scans and packed her equipment. "We need to leave soon. The stellar anomaly that brought down your transport is expanding. This system won't be safe much longer." David felt his heart sink. He had hoped for more time, for some solution that would let him stay or take Zephyra with him. But deep space travel was dangerous enough for humans, with specially designed ships and equipment. Her physiology was adapted to this world-specific atmospheric conditions and gravitational field. As if sensing his thoughts, Zephyra took his hand. The familiar warmth of their connection flowed between them, but this time it carried a different message. She showed him images of herself traveling in darkness, her light fading as she was separated from her world's energy sources. She would not survive the journey to human space. But then she shared something else, a memory of the crystal formations near her city, how they stored and amplified energy across vast distances. Her people had technology humans couldn't imagine, ways of preserving consciousness and life force that transcended physical limitations. "What is it?" David asked aloud, not caring that the others were watching. Through their connection, Zephyra showed him a possibility so incredible he could barely believe it. Her people could create biocrystalline matrices that preserved their essence during long journeys or dangerous situations. She could, theoretically, travel with him, not in her physical form, but as pure consciousness, housed in a special crystal that would keep her alive and aware. The process was dangerous and had never been attempted with an alien, but she was willing to try if it meant staying with him. David turned to Captain Morrison. "I need to speak with her people. There might be a way to bring her with us." Morrison frowned. "Mitchell, I understand your gratitude, but we can't delay. Departure for." "She's not just someone who helped me," David said quietly. "I love her." The simple honesty of his statement silenced the group. Dr. Torres looked fascinated rather than skeptical. Interspecies emotional bonding? The psychological implications alone. This isn't a research opportunity, David said firmly. This is about two people who found each other across impossible odds. Captain Morrison sighed. How long would you need? Before David could answer, lights appeared in the distance. The Vailani ship was returning, but this time it was accompanied by several others. A small fleet approached the landing site, their combined bioluminescence turning the night into an aurora of blues, greens, and golds. Zephyra squeezed David's hand, her excitement flowing through their connection. Her people had been debating his request, and they had reached a decision. The lead ship landed, and the same council leader who had confronted them earlier emerged. But this time, he carried something, a crystal formation unlike anything David had ever seen. It pulsed with internal light and seemed to respond to Zephyra's proximity dot as the Vailani leader approached. David realized that Zephyra's people had been preparing for this possibility. They had created a way for her to travel between stars, to follow her heart without losing her life. The choice was no longer between worlds. It was about creating a bridge between them. Beyond the stars, the crystalline matrix was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. About the size of David's fist, it pulsed with soft blue light that seemed to synchronize with Zephyra's bioluminescence. The Vailani leader placed it carefully on a smooth stone between them, then began a complex light display that David recognized as explanation. Through Zephyra's translation, via their touch connection, David learned that the crystal was called a soul heart, a repository for Vailani, consciousness during dangerous journeys or medical emergencies. Her people had used similar technology for thousands of years, but never with an alien species present. The process would require Zephyra to transfer her essential self into the crystal, leaving her physical body in a state of deep hibernation. She could communicate through the crystal's light patterns and would be aware of her surroundings, but she would be completely dependent on external care for survival. The risks? David asked through Zephyra. The leader's response was sobering. If the crystal were damaged, or if the energy transfer failed, she would die. If her body remained in hibernation too long without the crystal's return, it would shut down permanently. And there was no guarantee that human technology could support the crystal's energy needs during the long journey to Earth. Captain Morrison had been listening with growing alarm. Mitchell, this is insane. We're talking about experimental alien technology that could kill her. And if she stays here? David asked. When will I see her again? When will our peoples meet? This might be our only chance. Dr. Torres stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. I could modify our biosupport systems to accommodate the crystal's energy requirements. It would be challenging, but theoretically possible. Zephyra communicated rapidly with her leader, her light patterns becoming increasingly urgent. David felt her determination through their connection. She had made her choice and wouldn't be dissuaded. The Vailani leader gestured toward Zephyra's people, who had been waiting silently by their ships. They began to glow in unison, creating a ceremony of light that painted the entire landing site in shifting colors. This was their blessing, their acceptance of her decision. Zephyra approached the soul heart crystal, then turned to David one final time. She took his hands, and their connection blazed to life with an intensity that left him breathless. In those moments, she shared everything. Her childhood among the crystal cities, her dreams of exploring distant worlds, her love for him that had grown stronger than her fear. Then she showed him her vision of their future together, not just as lovers separated by species, but as bridges between worlds. Through their connection, humans and Vailani could learn from each other, share knowledge and culture, create something beautiful from their differences. Are you sure? David whispered. Her answer came not in thoughts, but in pure emotion, certainty, love, and unshakable trust in their bond. Zephyra placed her hands on the soul heart crystal. Immediately, it began to pulse brighter, and her own bioluminescence started to fade. The transfer was beginning. David watched in awe and terror as the light flowed from her body into the crystal. Her physical form grew dim and still, but the crystal blazed with captured starlight. When the process was complete, her body lay in peaceful hibernation while the soul heart pulsed with her consciousness. The crystal rose slightly from its resting place, hovering in the air and spinning slowly. Light patterns danced across its faceted surface. Zephyra's voice transformed into pure illumination. Dr. Torres approached carefully with her portable biosupport unit. The energy readings are incredible. I can configure our systems to maintain these patterns. As they prepared to transfer the crystal to the human ship, the Villani leader approached David. For the first time, he extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. When David took it, he felt a brief touch of alien consciousness, approval, hope, and a promise that this would not be the end, but the beginning. The journey back to human space took 3 weeks. David spent every free moment in the biolab, learning to interpret Zephyra's light patterns as she adapted to her crystalline form. She was still herself, curious, compassionate, and deeply in love with the strange human who had crash-landed in her world. When they finally reached Earth, the crystal pulsed with excitement as Zephyra experienced her first glimpse of human civilization. Through the ship's viewports, she saw the blue world David had shown her in memories. But seeing it directly through the crystal sensors was entirely different. The xenobiology team was amazed by the soul heart technology. Dr. Torres led the research, working closely with David to understand Zephyra's needs and establish communication protocols. Within months, they had created a mobile housing unit that allowed the crystal to accompany David anywhere on Earth. Their love story became legend, not just the tale of a human and alien who found each other across the stars, but proof that consciousness, love, and understanding could transcend any barrier. Zephyra became Earth's first alien ambassador, sharing Villani knowledge while learning human customs and culture. And late at night, when David held the warm crystal in his hands and felt Zephyra's consciousness touch his mind, they would share dreams of the day when Villani biotechnology could restore her physical form. Until then, they had something even more precious, a love that had literally moved between worlds, proving that the greatest human strength was the ability to find connection in the most impossible places. Their story reminded everyone who heard it that love, like consciousness itself, was not bound by flesh or form, but by the choice to reach across the darkness and touch another soul.